Good morning, everyone. Well, let's get started. Thank you, everyone, for joining this morning. This is our third Ghatika Monthly session. The topic this morning is appreciating our precious human life. This is aligned with a program we have called our Ghatika Monthly membership campaign, which is to support the CCR's activities. And the topics we're following are kind of aligned with the way that they flow in a calendar gift that you would receive if you were subscribed to that. But really, this is just in support of our mission, which is to help us understand and heal our minds in ways that we might not be welcomed into trying in our standard day-to-day education and lives. And so we're really introducing some fundamental concepts and practices for contemplative practice, which is really what we encourage at the CCR. We do what we call contemplative science, sort of an emerging discipline in the world in collaboration with partners, other academics and things like that. And there are a variety of ways we do that, including research at centers we have where people are in deep retreat, if you're not familiar with that aspect of what we do. But another way is just sort of trying to make these methods accessible to people, even if you're not going into deep retreat or participating in research or, studying these things. There are ways that we can transform ourselves on the day-to-day. And our teacher today, Clara, who's taught the first two sessions as well, is an absolute expert in these kinds of techniques, has a deep academic background in a variety of disciplines, including philosophy and German and literature, but also mindfulness and neuroscience, and has been teaching these kinds of practices in a variety of settings, including the corporate world, for many years, and did a wonderful job with our couple initial sessions. We have a bit of a shift in topic today, and so we're excited about the kind of reflection and visioning that we're going to do today. And I would love to just hand it over to Clara. Thank you all for joining.
So thank you very much, everyone, and thank you, Courtney, for this kind introduction. I'm really happy to be here with you and share this topic and explore this topic together, really. And I think I'm looking forward to hearing how you see this topic as well. So I don't really want to position myself as an expert on this, but really facilitate the discussion and the exploration. And I hope that we'll have a lot of food for thought and discussion here today. So the precious human life. So how are we going to go about this? I thought is that we'll start with exploring what we personally understand to be a precious human life. So really starting from a very personal perspective, and I invite you all to share your perspective on that in a moment. And then we'll talk about why we might want to contemplate our precious human life. What are the benefits of doing that? Then moving on to what it actually is that makes our life precious. Why do we consider it to be precious if we do? And we'll very swiftly get on to the topic of our worldview, because we can't really talk about it in a vacuum. It's always tied up with our worldview, and it's our worldview that will determine in a way how we perceive our life and what we consider precious about it. And then the very crucial question is what to do with our precious human life. How do we want to use our precious human life? And then we will do our Ghatika session, our guided meditation. And after the meditation, we'll have some time for sharing and exploring. So there's a lot to do and a lot to discuss today. So let's start off with this question that I want to pose to each and every one of you. What does a precious human life mean to you? And what I'm inviting you to share in the chat, if you would like to, is really what comes to mind when I ask that question. What is it that this conjures up for you? What does it mean to you personally, rather than what is a teaching that you've heard about it? So really, as many people as we have here, we will have as many different perspectives on this question. So if you just want to share just a few words, let's do a little brainstorm on what a precious human life means to you. And I'll keep an eye on the chat here if you just want to jot down some ideas. Opportunity to create betterment, right? Thank you, Paul. What else? Opportunity to love and be loved. Lovely. Thank you, Dana. Collective thriving. It's precious. Oh, it's too fast. Oh gosh, I'm missing. Making the most of the precious life I have, which happens to be human. Yes. The simple gift of being. Wonderful. John, time to meditate and cultivate compassion and be of service. My basic needs are met, so I'm free to spend time studying Dharma, practicing, being of service to others. Lovely. Thank you, Verle. Anything else? The ability to share with all sentient beings through compassion and wisdom. Wonderful. The ability to share with all, yeah, I've got that. Anything else? Great. So there's some themes emerging, and from what you're writing, I can sort of, the worldview is already shining through, and we'll talk more about that. So thank you very much for sharing these ideas. And of course, there's no right or wrong here. It's whatever our perspective is that, that determines what we consider precious. So we'll deepen the discussion as we go on. So thank you very much. And why should we contemplate our precious human life? What is the benefit of doing that? And there are numerous benefits, and a lot of you will be familiar with this, that it's part of the preliminary practices maybe that a lot of us may engage in before we start a meditation session. And it's really something to motivate and empower our spiritual practice. It's also a way of remembering to use our time wisely rather than squander it, or rather than spending time on things that are meaningless pursuits. It's a way of also creating greater gratitude and contentment, because we often take things for granted and we often get discontented with the circumstances in our lives. So it's an opportunity to really cultivate that greater contentment in our lives. It's also an opportunity to consider setting some wise aspirations and priorities for our life. So that's really important, and we'll talk more about that today. And also a way of orienting ourselves more towards flourishing. And what we mean by flourishing is this cultivating eudaimonia, this happiness that comes from within, by cultivating our mind, by meditating and contemplating. It's a way of appreciating our potential, of seeing that we are maybe more, we have greater potential than we maybe think, because sometimes we feel that we are very limited in what we can achieve in our lives, and looking at global problems, etc. But it's a way of remembering that we can actually do more than we might think. It's also a way of developing greater self-confidence in ourselves, really believing in ourselves more, because we do have a precious human life. And we'll explore these ideas a bit more in more detail. It's also, what I like about it is a way of counteracting the negativity bias that is so ingrained in our way of thinking, that we're always focusing on what's going wrong, what's not good, the problems in the world, rather than focusing on the good things that we have, the opportunities, the freedoms, and the privileges. And last but not least is a way of really counteracting some of the self-limiting beliefs that we might be plagued with from a psychological point of view, and really build that self-confidence, self-reliance, self-belief. So these are just some of the ways that it's really beneficial to contemplate our precious human life. So what is it actually? What makes our human life precious? And when answering this question, I think we really come very quickly to the question of worldview, because we don't answer this question in a vacuum. Whatever we will find, whatever we think about our life is kind of directed by our worldview. It's determined by our worldview. So a different worldview will look at life very differently. And so I just wanted to share a few ideas here. For example, if we look at our life from a materialist perspective, where everything boils down to matter, to the body, to the brain, and when you're dead, you're dead, death really means termination, then what makes life precious is this idea of YOLO, you only live once. You only have one life to lead, and you better make the most of it. And what does that mean from a materialist perspective? It means carpe diem, seize the day, enjoy it while it lasts, have as many experiences as possible. The more varied, the more colorful your life is, the better, just to make the most out of it. And there is this idea of a bucket list, which I've always found a little bit strange. What is that about? It's about having as many experiences as possible, and sometimes they might seem a little bit random, like jumping out of an aeroplane, or having to visit Hawaii, or having wanting to climb the highest mountain, or something like that. It all, I think, within that framework, it makes sense. And what generally our view will be very much, if we are coming from a materialistic worldview, it's very much about pursuing hedonia. So hedonia is that sense of pleasure, well-being, happiness that we can derive from the world. And often from a materialistic standpoint, it's a recipe for hedonism and consumerism. We only have this life to lead, so let's make the most of it. Let's acquire as much as we can. Let's have as much fun as possible. So that will be one view of why this life is precious, precisely because it's so short and we need to make the most of it. Although on the other hand, there is the other alternative from a materialist paradigm, that maybe life isn't really precious at all. And I think this view is encapsulated in this quote from Stephen Hawking, saying the human race is just a chemical scum on a moderate-sized planet orbiting around a very average star in the outer suburb of one among 100 billion galaxies. So life in that view is not really precious at all. So that's the alternative. From a theistic perspective, life, of course, is precious. And why is it precious? It's precious because it's sacred, and it's sacred because humans are made in God's image, the Imago Dei idea, which we can find in the Bible. And human life is a gift from God, so that makes it precious. So you can see that from, it's the perspective that we bring that determines how we interpret this idea of precious human life. To share with you another perspective, and this is, I put here the from a naturalist or romantic perspective, which is how Henry David Thoreau has been categorized, although I think he doesn't fit neatly into these categories. But I'd like to share this wonderful quote. Some of you might know this already, but it's just so beautiful. I would like to read it out to you, just to see another way of looking at our precious human life. So I went to the woods because I wished to live deliberately, to front only the essential facts of life and see if I could not learn what it had to teach, and not, when I came to die, discover that I had not lived. I did not wish to live what was not life. Living is so dear. Nor did I wish to practice resignation, unless it was quite necessary. I wanted to live deep and suck out all the marrow of life, to live so sturdily and Spartan-like as to put to rout all that was not life, to cut a broad swath and shave close, to drive life into a corner and reduce it to its lowest terms. And if it proved to be mean, why then to get the whole and genuine meanness of it and publish its meanness to the world? Or if it were sublime, to know it by experience and be able to give a true account of it in my next excursion. So the emphasis is mine here, but it's really another way of looking at seizing the day. And how do we want to seize the day? By actually going back to simplicity, by stripping all the unnecessary hedonic concerns and coming back to the essence of life, the marrow of life, and really also driven by a desire to understand reality as it is, to really this idea of philosophia, a love of wisdom, really understand and be able to give a true account of it, to really understand the nature of reality in a way. So that's a very different account of how to make the most of our lives. And then from a Buddhist perspective, of course, the precious human life is a human life that is free of obstacles to cultivating our mind and is replete with conducive conditions for flourishing. And not everyone has such a human such a precious human life. We all have a human life, but we don't all have a precious human life in this perspective. And we'll see if we do, when we take stock of the freedoms, the opportunities, and the privileges that we have, and that will make our life precious. So we can all, as we go through this list, reflect on whether we have this or not. So first of all, being human with a capacity for self-development. And self-development could be personal development, it could be spiritual development. It's the ability to learn from our experience, to reflect, to meditate, to develop and grow, and mature in our development as we go through life. So do we have that or not? Do we have food, clothing, shelter, enough at least to live a comfortable life? Having a healthy body and mind. And again, this is not a binary situation. We all have our aches and pains, and maybe we have some mental challenges as well, but it's being more well than we are unwell, as sometimes John Kabat-Zinn has this phrase that if you're breathing, there's more right with you than wrong. And I quite like that, because it shows that it's a matter of gradation, not a binary thing. So we're more well than unwell if we're here and participating in this session together. We have access to healthcare. We live in a free country, more or less free, of course. Again, it's not necessarily binary. We have free time. Some people might dispute that, but we all have the same amount of time, and we have enough time to spend on, we are able to take an hour out of our Sunday to participate in something that's not strictly necessary for survival. So that means we have enough free time. And we have sufficient wealth to not be starving and not to have to spend every single moment of each day earning a living or begging for food, etc. And last but not least, we have easy access to education, including spiritual teachings. So I think we've never had more an easier access to education and spiritual teachings than we do nowadays, with all the possibilities that we have through technology, which is absolutely wonderful. So as we go through this list, do we have we can see, do we tick all the boxes? Do we have a precious human life? Because some people are less fortunate, and some people will not have a precious human life because they don't have all these freedoms, opportunities, and also privileges. And so the question really is, what should we do with our precious human life? And given that we have these freedoms, opportunities, and privileges, does this come with a responsibility to lead a meaningful life, and a meaningful life in which we cultivate, rather than pursuing hedonia, cultivating our mind, cultivating a kind of sustainable well-being that comes from within, and maybe not just for ourselves, but also for others who do not have, for the benefit of others who do not have this precious human life. So do we need to take that into account? And so we can all answer this question for ourselves. But what I find very compelling is to see our precious human life as really an invitation to cultivate what Lama Alan calls cognitive intelligence. And I'll define it in a moment. Conation is not a word that everybody knows. Anyone who's followed Lama Alan's teachings will be aware of it, but most people I've encountered outside of this group have never heard of it. But conation comes from the Latin conare, which means to strive, to try, to endeavor. And it really describes this mental faculty of purpose, desire, intention, volition. So everything that has to do with our aspirations, our dreams, our goals, our intentions, our motivation in life. And so looking at the precious human life and seeing it as an opportunity to cultivate cognitive intelligence. And this is a nice definition of what that is. It's the ability to discern which desires and intentions truly lead to one's own and others' well-being, and to adopt them, while releasing desires and intentions that undermine one's own and others' well-being. And so this invitation, or one might even call it an imperative to cultivate cognitive intelligence, if you like, is something that we will actually now try for ourselves in the guided meditation that is to follow, which is an exercise in cognitive intelligence, in setting our own wise aspirations and desires. So with that, I hand over to Courtney to share the meditation, please.
Yes. Okay. Okay, here we go.
But we'll begin this session as we began this morning, and begin each session to come, by preparing the body, speech, and mind. First of all, the body settling in its natural state, relaxed, still, and vigilant. And when we say natural state, it means that it's not already configured in one direction for one type of task versus another, but we establish it in this state of dynamic equipoise, ready to remain still if we wish to remain still, ready to embark on any type of meaningful adventure. The body is poised for action, but also poised for inaction as we choose. Its natural state. And then in order to establish your outer speech, your actual voice, as well as the inner speech of the mind, in its natural state, a state of effortless silence, in order to facilitate that, settle your respiration in its natural rhythm, with every out-breath relaxing the body, releasing the breath fully, and releasing any thoughts, images, or memories that come to mind. And then in order to settle your mind in its natural state, grant yourself the freedom for the brief duration of this session to set aside all mundane concerns, all hopes and fears concerning the future and the past. Allow yourself the leisure and the opportunity to let your awareness come to rest in stillness in the present moment. For just a little while, attend to the sensations of the breath throughout the body, gently arousing your attention with each in-breath and relaxing with each out-breath. context of Buddhism, loving kindness, or maitri in Sanskrit, is defined not simply as a feeling or an emotion, but above all as an aspiration. An aspiration that we may find happiness, both hedonic as well as eudaimonic, and find the causes that lead to such well-being. So in this spirit of loving kindness, first of all directed to ourselves, I invite you first of all then to recall, what was your vision? What did you have in mind? What aspirations did you have in mind in deciding to come here to this retreat? And now, of course, our aspirations can and do change over time. They may become wiser and wiser as our insight deepens. So now bring your awareness right to the immediate present. What is your vision today? How would you love to see your life unfold? What is your vision of finding genuine happiness, a sense of meaning, of flourishing? What is your heart's desire? And as you hold this vision in mind, in this spirit of loving kindness, aspiring for your own happiness, aspiring to cultivate the causes leading to such well-being, with every out-breath, consciously arouse this aspiration. May it be so. May I find the happiness that I seek and cultivate the causes leading to it. With every out-breath, as if you were breathing life into this vision. Arouse this heart of loving kindness for yourself. And rather than holding this vision as some distant goal, use your imagination and breath by breath, imagine realizing here and now the fulfillment of your own innermost aspirations. Now move to a second question. In the same spirit of loving kindness, ask yourself, what would you love to receive from the world around you? From those who are near to you and those who are far, in the short term and the long term. What would you love to receive from the world around you to enable you to realize your heart's desire? And with each in-breath, arouse this aspiration, may it be so. May I receive all that I truly need in order to find the fulfillment, the sense of meaning, the happiness that I seek. With each in-breath, arouse this aspiration of loving kindness for yourself. And again, moving into the realm of possibility with the power of imagination. Imagine here and now reality rising up to meet you, moment by moment, day by day, week by week, providing you with all that you truly need to find the fulfillment that you seek. Imagine it to be so here and now. And then we move to the third question. In order to realize such fulfillment, obviously there must be transformation from within and not simply a lot of help from outside. So in the same spirit of loving kindness, envision now, how would you love to transform, to evolve, to grow, so that you may find the fulfillment that you seek? From what qualities would you love to be free? With what qualities would you love to be richly endowed? And once again, with every out-breath, arouse the aspiration. May it be so. With every out-breath, imagine it becoming so here and now. Imagine becoming the person you would love to become. And now let's bring to mind the fourth and final question. And that is, in order to find the greatest possible meaning and fulfillment, satisfaction in your own life, with this awareness that our lives are entangled with everyone around us, as well as the inanimate environment. Imagine now, drawing from your own unique background, your skills, your interests, your abilities, what did you uniquely love to offer to the world around you? What is the very best you could offer? Such that when your life is coming to an end and you're looking back upon it, you'll have that sense, that confidence that this was a life well led. And you can die in peace, satisfied that you've offered your very best. What would you love to offer to the world? With every out-breath, arouse the aspiration. May it be so. May I offer my very best. with every out-breath, again drawing from your imagination. Imagine here and now, offering your very best to those around you who are near and far, in the long term and the short term. Then release all imaginings, release all aspirations, and for just a moment, let your awareness come to rest in its own nature, simply being present, aware of being aware. Be still.
Thank you, everyone. Hand it back to Clara.
Thank you, Courtney. So I hope you found this meditation helpful. I find it's an excellent way of reflecting in a contemplative way, in a meditative way, on what we want to do with our precious human life, and actually exercise our cognitive intelligence when we set our own aspirations and goals in life. So I'd love to hear from you how you found this this meditation, anything that you want to share, what came up for you. And I have 3 prompts here, just as prompts really for us to discuss if you find them useful, but you can share freely, don't feel restrained by them. So let me read them out. The first one is, in what way has contemplating your precious human life helped you personally, either just now or if it's something that you do as part of your practice? The second one is, how do you incorporate this insight into your daily meditation or contemplation practice, or into your life in general? And thirdly, how can we prevent losing sight of our precious human life when confronted with all the suffering that we are confronted with, either personally or through the media? So I'd love to hear from you. You can share in the chat, or you can just unmute yourselves and speak if you'd like to. I'd like to share something. Keeping an eye on the chat, but yeah. Does anyone practice this? Does anyone have this as a daily practice, maybe as a preliminary practice to your meditation, or have any other ways of integrating this into your lives? Annette, I can see you raise your hand. Please just unmute yourself.
Hello, everybody. Thank you. In fact, I'm sorry, it's not these questions I'm responding to. What actually came to mind? What actually came to mind for me was how I consider other people's lives to be precious to me, which makes my life precious too, because like I was thinking first of all of my parents, but then I was remembering like today, I live in a Buddhist center, but that makes everything easier for me. But today we had a long life ceremony for my teacher, the Venerable Panchen Otul Rinpoche. And because, you know, because his life is so precious to us as students. And it just came to mind about the precious human life. And something that makes my human life more precious is those who are precious to me. I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That's a wonderful perspective. And it absolutely is, you know, rings so true. You know, that's what makes our life precious for sure. Yeah. So wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing that. And Vela, I can see your hand.
Yeah, I wanted to bring up another topic as well. I noticed in the chat that there's also something about how can we look at other people's lives not being precious when they don't have all the opportunities? Does that mean their lives are not precious? And I think there is some, how you say that valuable and precious are being mixed here. And maybe you can clarify something on that.
Yeah, thank you. That's actually a very important point. Yeah, it's not meant as a value judgment. It's more the idea that it's precious because we have all these opportunities and not everyone has these opportunities. So it's not that their life is worth less in any way, of course. It's more that, yeah, and I can see how that can lead to confusion. So thank you so much for bringing that up. I missed that in the chat, I think. But yeah, thank you. So it's not meant as a value judgment. It's more in the sense that we discussed that, you know, having the freedoms, the opportunities, the privileges that we are actually enjoying. I think all of us here on this call have these opportunities, and this is precious. This is what makes our life precious. Whereas if we don't have that, it's more difficult. It's more difficult to develop ourselves, to have a spiritual practice when we're spending the whole day trying to make a living, for example. So yeah, thanks so much for clarifying. It's not a value judgment. It's really that idea of we have certain privileges by just being born in a more fortunate into a more fortunate situation, and being grateful for that. So thank you for bringing that up. And Fred, I can see your hand up as well.
Yes, I was the person who raised that in the chat first.
Right.
I wasn't seeing it as a value judgment. I think my later comment in the chat was perhaps more to the point. We see preciousness quite often as a binary and an absolute concept. And I don't believe it is. So I cited the example of my daughter. It is possible that she's learning the last set of lessons in her life. I don't know this. That she will be in her next life some top tulku or something, right? You know? Whereas, for example, one of my dogs actually enjoys being with me, meditating, and has done wonderful things for one of my other daughters. So I feel that when we talk about a precious human life, all lives are precious, right? And it's very difficult for any of us, unless we are fully realized beings, to understand if someone's life is more or less precious. So I think it's a relative concept as well.
Yeah.
And I think it's very easy for us to start talking like it's an absolute concept, and I don't believe it is myself. Perhaps on a more positive note, one of the things that really helped me thinking about preciousness is that I have a very, very busy life. I run a large research laboratory, have a family with quite particular needs, and of course want to engage in the Dharma. And it's helped me think a lot about how those things integrate and how the activities in my research laboratory can be of benefit to people, you know? And maybe in that sense, thinking about preciousness has helped me focus a bit, but perhaps not enough yet.
Yeah, wonderful insights. Yeah, that idea of integration of, you know, even though maybe there's not so much free time, there, you know, it's just how one directs one's attention and one's energies, and how one maybe sort of dedicates the effort as well. You know, you're doing so much work, and you're thinking about the benefits it might bring. So that's you know, using your cognitive intelligence in a way to direct it in a meaningful way. So that's a really important idea as well, to integrate it. It's not necessarily something that we can do, we only have to do you know, as part of our meditation practice, but the idea is really to integrate it into our lives. So I think what you're saying is really meaningful in that way. And I do, you know, hear what you're saying about it not being binary, but it's a matter of degree and gradation, and I think that's definitely true. But yeah, great, thank you so much for that. And John, I can see you as well, raising your hand.
Yeah, I was thinking about you know, the roles that I play in my life now, and the roles that I played growing up and getting older. And I think the preciousness of human life helps me to see that with all these roles, maybe there's a number of people that don't know I'm a Buddhist practitioner and don't really need to know. And I play, well, I don't want to use the word play, but that's a very important role or aspect of myself. And the nice thing is I don't have to tell other people or anything like that. You know, I can enjoy the preciousness of people, my family, nieces, nephews, colleagues, and maybe nothing's ever said about being a Buddhist practitioner. Yet I think my main point was trying to maybe articulate that I think no matter what role I play or anybody else who I interact with, if I can just keep remembering the heart of kindness and compassion transcends all my roles, and it, I think, transcends all people's roles, because it makes us at the very essence of being deeply human and even divine. I think that's, to me, that's what probably the greatest role for me to lean into, is that depth of compassion and kindness.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. That's a very moving way of saying it. Really appreciate it. And it really does, you know, that is really a precious human life if one can do that. And it does transcend the roles that we play. And yeah, thank you so much for that. I think I'm just very aware of time. I don't want to run over for you, but I have a couple of slides that I want to kind of leave you with as we end. And thank you so much for all your contributions, because I think that just makes it so rich and shows us all the different aspects that we can consider with this very rich topic. So my penultimate slide here is really my call to action for you, or rather a call to reflection for you to ponder later on. And I know a lot of you are doing that already, but a quote from Mary Oliver from a poem: "Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?" So that's something to reflect on. And I wanted His Holiness to have the last word here. And what he considers a precious human life. And so I want to leave you with these reflections from His Holiness. every day, think as you wake up, today I am fortunate to have woken up. I am alive. I have a precious human life. I'm not going to waste it. I'm going to use all my energies to develop myself, to expand my heart out to others, to achieve enlightenment for the benefit of all beings. I'm going to have kind thoughts towards others. I'm not going to get angry or think badly about others. I'm going to benefit others as much as I can. So this is His Holiness's take on the precious human life, and I hope you find it as inspiring as I do. And I want to thank you all for being here, for spending your precious human life, 1 hour out of your precious human life with me and everyone here on the call, and for contributing. And yeah, so thank you very much. And I want to hand it over to Courtney for any last words.
Sure. Yes. Thank you so much, Clara. What a beautiful session. Thank you, everyone, for joining. I just want to point out that our friend, brother Thomas Andrew in the chat had a prescient moment where he said this topic also brings to mind that phrase in Mary Oliver's poem. And so that came before this slide. And I just think that was, that was great.
Thank you.
But yes, thank you, everyone, for joining. Thank you. Many of you support the CCR. We're so grateful for that. I want to encourage you, if you feel moved to join our Ghatika Monthly membership. It really helps us with all of our operations and research, and more educational offerings to come, hopefully in coming months for the world. And just very grateful for you spending your time with us today and contributing your wisdom and practices to the world. So we hope to see you again next month. I think we'll wrap it up now. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
Bye.
you.